She left her baby with me to live her life on her own terms, but now she's back with her new fiancé, asking for her daughter back. I showed her these papers, and she got pretty upset. For the past 5 years, I've been raising my husband's daughter, Nisabi, along with my own kids. Now, all of a sudden, my sister-in-law Riley is back and wants me to give up custody of her, so she can have her daughter back and complete her family. Just so you know, she was the one who had given up her baby in the beginning. Now that I'm refusing to let her take over, she's making a huge fuss about it. It's become such a huge deal that I've actually started doubting myself. He decided to leave her, and that was that. My husband and I aren't close with her, so we weren't really invested in the pregnancy. About 2 weeks after the baby was gone, my mother-in-law showed up at our house and told me she wanted me to look after the baby for a couple of weeks. She said Riley wanted to resume college since she was 20 at the time and had to drop a year because of pregnancy. They told me that they were going to look for apartments near her campus and would be back in just a few days, so they needed my help to take care of the baby since they couldn't rely on anyone else. My husband and I love kids, and by then we already had our son, so we agreed because we thought it was just going to be a couple of days. But then they literally disappeared for almost 2 months. We tried calling them, texting them, and even contacting them through other people, but there was just no way that we couldn't get hold of them when my mother-in-law finally came back. She told me that Riley had decided to give up her baby and now she expected me to raise her. Apparently Riley had left the country and that's what they had spent the past 2 months making arrangements for because she wanted to lead a free-spirited lifestyle. Whatever that means. And being bogged down by a baby, that's not her thing anymore. And she had realized it a little too late. My husband and I were obviously shocked. We were also pretty angry because we hadn't been planning for a second baby. We already had a 2-year-old to deal with, and we couldn't handle a second child. It was also pretty unethical. My mother-in-law said that she would have adopted her grandchild, but unfortunately, she had lost her husband a couple of years ago and didn't think it would be wise for her to do so because she was getting old and it would also be pretty expensive. But my husband decided to cut her out of our lives. After thinking it over, though, we decided to keep our niece with us and raise her as our own daughter. We obviously had no contact with Riley either. Since she had basically abandoned her daughter, we spoke to a lawyer about how we could go ahead and legally adopt Abby. It took more than a year and a lot of paperwork, but eventually we were able to legally adopt Abby after having Riley's parental rights. She was terminated on grounds of abandonment and has been part of our family ever since. No questions asked. Then my husband and I finally had another daughter 2 years ago, and our family was complete. We've been raising all 3 of our children together and have had to be very careful with our finances, but it's been totally worth it. Yet in spite of doing all this, Riley thinks she is entitled to ask for her baby back. Now, about 2 weeks ago, she showed up at our door. She showed up at our doorstep with her new fiancé, telling us that she was planning on getting married now and that she just wanted Abby back. She said that she didn't want to go through another pregnancy. I asked her to give me a minute, got the paperwork from the adoption, and showed it to her. Then I slammed the door in her face. After that, she kept screaming at me from outside the door, but I'd been waiting years to do this, and luckily my husband was out with the kids when it happened. They didn't even have to witness it. After I slammed the door and she started screaming at me, I told her I'd call the cops if she didn't leave. She finally left, and I thought it was over because I'd legally adopted Abby. There's nothing I can do about this now. She's been playing the victim and trying to make my husband and me look bad. The family is actually falling for it. When my husband came home with the kids, I told him everything that had happened. We decided we weren't going to let this affect us. But the situation has changed now. Literally every single person from his family is telling us that what we are doing, they say it's not right and that we don't have the right to keep a mother and her daughter apart just because we're attached to Abby. I don't know how to explain to them that I'm not attached to Abby just because she's a child and I've been raising her for 5 years. I feel the same way about her that I feel for the rest of my kids because I am her mother, regardless of the biological connection. I can say the same for my husband is the same. We've been doing our best to defend ourselves, but it doesn't help that even my mother-in-law, who had actually left Abby with us years ago and explained the situation to us, isn't on our side. She actually believes that we should return Abby to her mother. I guess that's just out of pettiness because for the past 5 years, we haven't been in touch with her since we cut her out of our lives. She was being sneaky about the whole thing, which was pretty unethical. At least her behavior makes sense, she's just being petty and vengeful. But I don't know how to explain the rest of my husband's family. There have been loads of messages since last week, after Riley posted about the incident. She said she'd made a mistake 5 years ago by abandoning her daughter, but now she wants to rectify that. She made a mistake, but we're not letting her make amends. We're keeping her away from her own daughter. The tone of the post was pretty emotional, and she managed to convince people that she was the victim. Since then, my husband's family hasn't wasted a single day. They've been calling us all sorts of names and telling us that what we're doing is ruthless and that we're destroying Abby's life. We're even starting to doubt ourselves. I feel like I'm going crazy. She can't do anything legally, which is probably why she's coming after us like this. What do you think about this, Ida? I'm refusing to return my niece to my sister-in-law after raising her for 5 years. Edit. I'm pasting the post here for anyone who wanted to see what I was talking about. Hi everyone, this is Riley, and I want to talk. I wanted to talk to you all about something important today. It's about my daughter. I know many of you don't know I have a daughter, and I partly blame myself for that. I left my daughter behind when I moved away from my old life 5 years ago. I wanted to be free from all the expectations that everyone had for me. I wanted to start a new life for myself, and I have been successful in doing so to some extent. I found a great guy, Jacob. He loves me like nobody else and we're going to get married soon. I told him about my daughter and he was happy to accept her into the family. My sister-in-law Michelle has been raising my daughter for the past 5 years. Unfortunately, she's now claiming my daughter as her own and won't let me take my daughter back. I'm stuck because she's got custody. She took my daughter from me and I don't think I can do anything legally, so I need all the help I can get from everyone here to bring my baby back home. I know it was my mistake to trust her, but I had never expected something like this to happen. I had thought she was just going to take care of my baby in my absence and that I'd get to be a dad again when I was ready. I'm a mother to my child again, but that chance has been taken away from me. I can't even begin to explain how much it hurts. Please support me here. You guys have no idea how much it'll mean to me. Thank you so much. Please get my baby back home. Update 1. Hi, I know I've been overthinking this, but there's clearly something wrong with my husband's family. It was a mistake to care what they were saying. It doesn't matter because they don't have a legal leg to stand on. The facts are that my sister-in-law abandoned her baby, which is why we ended up adopting Abby. If she had been involved in her life, I don't even think the courts would have allowed this to happen. She's been extremely manipulative and clever with her words, which is why so many of my family members have come out in support of her. But no matter how much she tries to distort and twist the truth in her favor, we know the facts. We had been blocking people initially, but after that it got too overwhelming and we started doubting ourselves, so we stopped for a while. However, we are back to blocking people now, and just to be on the safe side, we have also spoken to our lawyer in case she tries. We're going to sue her for defamation. We're letting it go for now because it doesn't matter what a bunch of losers from my husband's family think about us. If she goes public with this, we'll have to take legal action against her. It's pretty insane that this is happening, and people are on her side. Weirder things have happened, though. I've got an update for you. It's been a week since my last update and 2 days since Riley showed up at our house again. I don't know why she came. By this time, my husband and kids were at home, so I didn't even open the door. As soon as I saw that it was her, I asked her to leave. I had my phone in my hand to call the cops if she refused. So far, we've been blocking all the we'd been getting texts from relatives who were in Riley's corner, so we blocked her everywhere to stop her contacting us. We had no idea what was going on with everyone else because, as they say, ignorance is bliss. I guess that's why she took the trouble to show up in person. When I told her to leave, she said she just wanted to see Abby once, as she was her biological daughter. I felt I had to let her see Abby, even if it was just for a moment. Her voice was trembling, as if she was about to cry. I wasn't going to fall for it though. I told her that I wasn't going to let her see Abby again, because she had lost that right when she left her with us to live a more carefree life. After all the lies she had posted online and the way she had sent her entire family after us. She had no right to even speak to us. So I gave her one last warning to leave. Instead, she started begging me not to do this. But I didn't care. I told my husband what was going on. So he took the kids to the nursery. And I called the cops. We just didn't want the kids to find out about any of this. So he played with them while I handled the cops. And she was escorted off our property. She went away quietly without any drama, which was a bit suspicious because I really didn't think that was going to happen. While we were waiting for the cops to arrive, she kept begging me to let her see her daughter and promise me that she would go away and never bother me again if I just let her see Abby once. Anyway, after she left, my husband and I had a talk, but unfortunately, we realized that we couldn't stop her from showing up. We could file a restraining order against her, but that's as much as we could do, and even then, we couldn't guarantee that she'd never show up again. Moving away wasn't an option, especially in this economy when rent is so expensive. Luckily, my father-in-law had bought us this house, and it also meant a lot to us sentimentally, so we didn't want to move. We just have to deal with it, I guess. Update 3, I won't let Riley see Abby. It's interesting how people are calling me heartless right now. After all, it was Riley who abandoned her baby and left to move to another country so she could live freely. Then, after 5 years without any contact in between, she's come back with no concern for her baby's well-being. Now, all of a sudden, she can't wait to be a mother again. Not to mention how idiotic her behavior has been. Since she came back, she's been playing the victim on social media and sending her relatives after me. It's hard to feel sorry for someone like that, and I really don't feel sorry for her at all. Besides, I'd already considered all the possibilities and decided to decline. The biggest thing I was worried about was that she might have blurted something out in front of Abby, and then I'd have to explain to a 5-year-old things that she has. I don't think it's any of our business right now. There's no need to create all the drama. That's why I asked her to leave. I don't think I'm a heartless one here at all. And whoever left those comments really needs to rethink what they think. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about what happened recently. I think after hearing me out, whoever had been calling me heartless for not letting Riley see Abby will change their mind too. She's clearly unstable. Last week, I refused to let her see Abby. A couple of days ago, she started stalking us. At first, neither my husband nor I were suspicious, but then we noticed that every time we went out, the same car followed us. It didn't take long to figure out that it must have been Riley. A couple of days later, we confronted her. We pulled over. While she was driving behind us, we went to her car and asked her to come out. When she did, I told her off in the middle of the street. I didn't care who was watching us. I just wanted her to know that what she was doing was wrong. I was going to file a restraining order against her because she was unstable and didn't deserve to be around Abby. She was quiet for the first couple of minutes, but when I told her that she didn't deserve to be around Abby. She started yelling back at me and told me that she was going to make sure that she took custody of her daughter away from me. She was really getting on my nerves, so I called her psychotic and told her to get off our backs. Then she slapped me. It happened so suddenly that I didn't even see it coming. After she slapped me, she immediately started apologizing to me with tears in her eyes. I'd had enough. I'd reached my limit with the physical violence, the stalking, the constant harassment and everything else. I knew I had to speak to a lawyer. My husband and I were pretty shocked, and we were headed to the grocery store at the time, but we didn't end up going. We headed back home, and even when we were getting back into our car, she followed us to the car and was begging for forgiveness the whole time. Eventually my husband had to tell her that he told her that if she tried to follow us back home, he'd make sure she faced some terrible consequences. So she didn't follow us back. When we got home, I immediately called my lawyer and explained everything to him. Once that was done, he reassured us that he'd be preparing the paperwork to file a restraining order against her. He also told us to report Riley and press charges against her. So a couple of minutes later, after speaking to our lawyer, we called the cops and we told them everything and, as it was just a slap, my husband and I thought she'd get off with a warning. But then they decided to press charges over the stalking and more, so that'll definitely come in handy when we're trying to get that restraining order. We haven't heard from Riley since and we're hoping to keep it that way because after everything that has happened, I really just don't even think we never had anything to talk about. We just tried to keep things civil, but she wasn't doing that. We just didn't want drama in our lives. We figured that if we kept ignoring her, she would take the hint and leave us alone. Clearly, that's not what happened. We should have nipped this in the bud instead of trying to play nice. At the end of the day, our children are our first. Priority number one is making sure this doesn't affect our kids in any way. So far, it hasn't. They've just been asking us if we're okay because we've been a bit quieter than usual. We're trying to fix that and not let them know what we're going through because keeping them happy is our main goal right now. It's been really stressful for both my husband and me, but I really do hope that things get better soon. Please keep praying for us. Here's the latest. Once again, she's blaming us instead of taking it out on the right person. She thinks I'm heartless and that if I'd just let Riley see her daughter, none of this would have happened. She even called my parents a couple of weeks ago and told them I'd pushed her daughter into doing something like this. And right now, things are going pretty badly for Riley. I don't know how any of this is my fault. And even if it technically was my fault, wouldn't my husband be more to blame? He didn't say anything about him. And I really can't think of any reason to involve my parents in this. I honestly don't understand why that woman has it in for me. Or rather, why my husband's family seems to hate me so much. I have never done anything to them. I was nice to them, but I guess that's just not enough for some people. Thankfully, she'd only spoken to my parents on the phone and hadn't bothered them in person. So they had the liberty to hang up whenever they felt like they'd had enough. They only had to hear her out for a couple of minutes before disconnecting the phone call. Even after that, she sent them a bunch of messages, calling them rude and mannerless and saying that she finally understood where I think it's pretty crazy that she's going to such lengths just to humiliate me, knowing that I've done nothing wrong. I'm sure she's not that delusional in reality, because when I used to be on speaking terms with her, she seemed like a pretty reasonable person. Anyway, if this is what she's choosing to do, that's her call. All it'll do is make sure that her son never speaks to her, but she doesn't have any access to her grandkids. I doubt that'll affect her, though, because she's already spent 5 years without them. I think she can go 5 more. Eventually, though, she'll realize she's not getting anything out of Riley and she'll come crawling back to us. Then we'll talk. My parents didn't seem to care and they just wanted to inform me that this was I felt a little insulted and like I had to apologize to my parents, but they just dismissed it because they understood that this was not my fault. We just hope that this doesn't put ideas into my mother-in-law's or Riley's head and that they don't go talking to other people. So far they have only tried to emotionally manipulate my husband's family. If she starts talking to our friends or colleagues, it'll be pretty humiliating for us. We can't do anything to stop it, but we're just hoping it doesn't happen. At least we got the restraining order, so that's been a huge relief. If she shows up, we'll just get her arrested and that'll put an end to all of this. I think we've been spending less time with the kids since Riley came back into our lives. We've decided to take a vacation, and we've already started planning it. We've even talked about it at work. We deserve this break after everything we've been through as a family. Let's see how it goes. That's about it for me right now. Update 5. It's been a couple of months since my last update. I wasn't sure why he was texting me. But then I read his message. To make a long story short, he'd broken up with Riley. He just wanted to apologize to us. It was actually Riley who'd shared my contact info with him at first. She wanted him to text me when I'd blocked her. But he thought that was taking it too far. So he never did. Up until recently, he'd been sympathizing with Riley. He thought I was wrong. But there had always been a little he was still unsure about it, and I don't know what changed all of a sudden because he didn't mention anything in his message. He said that recently he had realized that Riley was the one who was wrong here and that he didn't want to be part of something so messed up anymore. He was moving back to his hometown in a couple of days, but before that he just wanted to apologize to me for all the trouble Riley had caused me. It was actually pretty nice of him. I didn't think he'd been involved in any of this. But he was just apologizing for not defending me properly. I showed it to my husband. He was pretty surprised. But we just told him it was fine. And wished him all the best. That was it. Then this morning. I heard from a couple of friends that Riley had been crying on social media. Apparently she had posted a video saying that her fiancé had broken up with her after 3 years together and that it was all my fault. I don't understand how any of this is my fault, but I guess this is just how she and her mother operate. Whatever goes wrong in their lives, they blame me for it. Whatever that video was, it was obviously posted so people would sympathize with her. Give her attention, and they did end up doing so because our friend told us that the comment section was full of people hating on me and telling Riley that she deserved better. They were painting her to be some tragic figure who had been through so much, but well, I guess we also know the truth about her. Anyway, it doesn't matter because she's getting all her karma right now. Update 6, my last update was just a couple of weeks back, and I didn't think I'd be back here so soon, but what I found out is pretty funny. Our friends told us that right now, Riley and my mother-in-law are having a very public fight on social media. It seems that after Riley was dumped, she chose to blame her mother in one of her videos. I guess after blaming me for a couple of days, she realized that I wasn't going to respond, so she chose to start blaming her mom. She claimed that apparently her mother was the one who had made her give up her baby to Mia. Now she was equally at fault for the situation at hand. Her fiancé leaving her is apparently everybody else's fault now. It's pretty funny how she's dodging accountability. I guess she's in denial right now. But she can't run away from the truth forever. Someday she'll have to accept her own faults. Until then though, she can definitely go on blaming her mom for everything. The way they are fighting online right now is pretty funny.